Welcome and thanks for joining this video all about the Raspberry Pi. So what is a Raspberry Pi? A Raspberry Pi is a computer the size of the palm of your hand and quite a powerful little computer, and a computer that is very capable and can do lots of things, and was built as an educational computer and is an educational computer. It can do a lot of other things as well. If you're into home automation, you are going to be using Raspberry Pis, you're going to be using Arduino, you're going to be using various things. Now, my feeling is that everybody who works in the IT department must have a set of Linux skills. And using a Raspberry Pi to get Linux skills is not a bad thing to do and not a bad place to be. The computers are relatively cheap. You can buy yourself one, you can play around with it, and while you're playing around with it, you are going to learn a hell of a lot. So let me show you what a Raspberry Pi looks like, and just a 10,000 foot overview about a Raspberry Pi. So that's what the whole computer looks like. Let me push it a little bit this way. That's what the whole computer looks like. This is a Raspberry Pi 4B computer, which is using the latest Broadcom 2711 processor. It is a 64-bit processor. This specific one has got 8 gigs of RAM installed in it. Just a couple of things about the motherboard. So you've got lots of USB connection points. You've got 2 over there, USB 3 connections. You've got this normal Ethernet port over here where you can plug your normal Ethernet network cable in it. We've got these little pins over here, which are GPIO pins, so they do various things. Just interesting, that is the CPU over there. That is the Broadcom CPU over there. You'll notice that on this Raspberry Pi I have plugged in a fan, and with the Raspberry Pi 4B you do want to plug in a fan. It's the first time that the Raspberry Pis do require external storage. External cooling. The processor typically runs on this little board at about 60 degrees, so you do want to have some mechanical cooling behind it. So they have just connected it onto the pins over there, just picking up 5 volts over there into the fan over here. Typically you'll buy a Raspberry Pi, you'll just get the little motherboard. It comes in a little box, something like this. There we go. I'm not sure if that's in focus. I even think it's upside down. So it'll come in a little box like that. Let's get it there. Come in a little box, something like that. And then you need an enclosure on it. So I've got an enclosure which is actually open at the moment over here. It's got 2 HDMI ports, so you can plug this thing into your TV. It is 4K capable. Both ports are 4K capable. So if you've got a big 65-inch TV, you can actually run a computer on it and just plug this thing into it. Notice that it is micro HDMI ports, so you may need a little adapter like this one over here, just to convert micro HDMI to HDMI. You can use your normal HDMI cable on that. There's a little power supply port over there. So essentially that's the whole computer. At the bottom of it, just underneath over here, we do plug in a micro SD card, and that's essentially the hard drive of the computer. So you can plug them out, plug them in. I'm going to show you how to make up your SD cards, how to install the operating system on it. The Raspberry Pis, there are a couple of operating systems that you can install. This specific one is a 64-bit processor, but the Raspberry operating system, which is a Linux distribution based on Debian, is a 32-bit operating system. The 64-bit operating system is currently in beta. We'll probably see that coming out soon. But all in all, you can do everything on your Raspberry Pi. You can run a mail server, you can run a web server, you can learn Linux on it, you can do all types of home automation, garden automation, etc. Start little engines, measure temperatures, all these type of things you can do on a Raspberry Pi. It is a fully blown computer. There is no difference between a 10,000 Rand or $1,000 computer and a Raspberry Pi. All the basic principles behind it are exactly the same. It's got a hard drive, be it solid state disk, be it the SD card and not the solid state disk. It's got memory, it's got CPU, and you install the normal Linux on it. It does run an ARM processor. Just a little bit about ARM. ARM is also the type of technology that Apple are going to install in their latest laptops as well, or in their latest computers as well. So the Apple M1 processor, also ARM-based processor. So absolutely beautiful little machine, works really, really well. And we're going to do a couple of very interesting things using this Raspberry Pi, little projects. I'll get you all started about what you need and how you're going to put it all together. Just know that when you buy the Raspberry Pi, you only get the motherboard. So you have to buy a little box for it with a fan for the Raspberry Pi 4B. You want to have a power supply. The 4B also requires a 3 amp power supply now to drive it, but it is quite a powerful little machine, and you need a keyboard and a mouse. So plug in a keyboard, plug in a mouse, and it will load a Windows based Linux system that looks very, very nice. So thank you for joining. Please watch my other videos on the Raspberry Pi. I will get you all started with that, and click the subscribe button. Thanks for joining.